of Jacob's journey. We will take a look at Jacob in Paddan, Aram. Okay, and in the last phase of his journey and his life in Paddan Aram, we will have a look at how things went with him. What are the things that we can apply in our life, in our current situation? That also we will try to take a look. Okay, so we will turn in our Bibles to Genesis chapter 29. Okay, we'll turn in our Bibles to Genesis chapter 29. Okay, maybe we can read from verse 1 to verse 14. Verse 1 to verse 14 we can read, and then we'll start with Jeremiah loudly, each person one verse each, and we will go up to verse 14.
So Jacob went on his journey and came to the land of the people of the East. There he saw a well in the creek was so flying indirectly, and those were referred from their well. But all over the mouth of the well and they were up. All the rocks would be gathered there. They would roll the stones of the well. Water was filled to the stone back in its place in the well. And you consider, do you know Laban the son of Nahor? And they said, we know him.
Then Jacob asked him if that he will give him his children. And here comes his daughter Rachel in the sea.
While he was still talking with them, Rachel came with her father's sheep, for she was a shepherdess.
When Jacob saw Rachel, daughter of his uncle Laban, and Laban's sheep, he went over and rolled the stone away from the mouth of the well and watered his uncle's sheep.
Very told Jacob that for the relating father, the son of Laban, so she ran and told her. It came to pass when Laban heard the report of her son, the land of the king, the great thing of the state, what into his house, old Laban, all this.
And Laban said to him,
Okay, so we are going to look at this passage, but before we look at it, we will recap what we had learned last week. So remember any important points that we learned last week? Because there is something we left also, the last part of it, which we will be doing today in the dream. Chalo, fatafat. Huh? The well of Beersheba. He started his journey from Beersheba, and we also saw the connection with that place later on when he would start his journey for Egypt, or he will visit Beersheba before he goes there, because it was a place he wanted to remember. Okay, place of 7, the well of 7, or the well of oath, that is the name, Beersheba. Then Fatafat, 2-3 points at least you all must tell. 1 week you cannot lose everything. John. But you have to listen, or it is recorded and kept for people who missed. Huh? Loudly, loudly. God appeared because you have to be heard in the. He had a dream. Jacob had a dream. Then we made a connection between the stone he put under his head, okay, and Jesus as the rock, okay, and a person building his life on that foundation. When he put his head on a stone, normally a stone will not give you rest, no? You need soft pillow. But he got rest, he got good sleep. You know, when you get a dream, it is called deep sleep. If you read the science between sleep, when you sleep, your eyeball is stationary and your eyes are closed. Then when you sink into deep sleep, your eyeball actually starts rotating. Okay. It is called as REM sleep, rapid eye movement sleep. Okay. So that is when you are in deep sleep, and very often people have dreams during their REM sleep. Okay. So he was in his deep sleep when he got a dream. And the dream was, but you read Genesis before, no? So you're preparing for the quiz also. This time I'll not leave you. We'll come and take the test in your house. If you have to prepare, okay? No excuse. We are learning in this Bible study so that we will learn it thoroughly. Okay. So what was the dream? There was a ladder. Brother has preached many times on this topic. Ladder between earth and heaven. And what was happening on the ladder? Angels were going up and down. Okay. And God was at the top of it. So we saw the connection between the physical world and a spiritual world. And God sovereignly controlling all things through things that we can see and things that we cannot see as well. Okay. And then God appeared and spoke to Jacob in that dream and told him that he will have many descendants, that God will take care of him, that he will be taken, God will keep him safe, okay, and God will also provide for him and take him back to his homeland, okay. So God literally told him something. When you look at Jacob's life at that time, his heart must have been beating. He was mummy's boy at home, never going out of the house. Now he was out and into an uncertain place. He was not the type who was an adventurer, no, going out often. He was usually at home. And now God was comforting him and saying, I will take care of you. Okay. So we will come to the last part of that also, verse 16 to 22. Joanna will read all the verses 16 to 22 loudly.
Now Laban had two daughters.
Verse 16 to 22 of 28.
When Jacob awoke from his sleep, he thought, surely the Lord is in this place, and I was not aware of it. He was afraid and said, how awesome is this place? This is none other than the house of God. This is the gate of heaven. Early the next morning, Jacob took the stone he had placed under his head and set it up as a pillar and poured oil on top of it. He called that place Bethel, though the city used to be called Luz. Then Jacob made a vow, saying, if God will be with me and will watch over me on this journey I am taking and will give me food to eat and clothes to wear, so that I return safely to my father's house, then the Lord will be my God, and this stone that I set up as a pillar will be God's house. And of all that you give me, I will give you a tenth.
Okay. So we are learning some things from what God said. We have seen that last week. Now from what Jacob is telling also, we will be learning something. He woke up from his sleep and said, surely the Lord is in this place. Is God restricted to some particular place? No. Okay. But because he saw this dream, he thought maybe God was there. He had not felt the presence of God in other places. Okay. But here God was connecting to him and he felt the place was special. Something where God was present. Okay. And he says, and I was not aware of it. He was afraid. Okay. Bible tells fear of the Lord is the beginning of wisdom. But there are other kinds of fears also. Okay? The demons believe, but they tremble in fear. Okay? Because they are disobedient, they have no inclination to obey God. Okay? So they have fear. Okay? There is another kind of fear where it is a reverent awe of who God is. Okay, when you feel the presence of God and you are afraid of approaching Him because He is holy. Okay, then you want that thing which comes as a barrier between you and God to be removed. It's a fear which makes you earn for a closer walk or presence of God. Okay. The other fear drives people away from God because they don't want their sins to be dealt with. That is called as demonic fear. Okay. But here Jacob had fear. Jacob was not a believer at this point of time. We have seen that he was always referring to God as the God of his grandfather Abraham and the God of Isaac. He also referred to him as the fear of Isaac. Okay, why fear of Isaac? Because Isaac had an experience, terrifying experience, no? When he was tied up by his father and was asked to be offered before God. He was quiet, okay? But still there would have been fear of God, okay? Because God as sovereign was in charge, okay? How awesome is this place? This is none other than the house of God. This is the gate of heaven or the gateway to heaven, okay? So for his mind, it conveyed a picture of specialness, the place being very special, okay? But God cannot be limited or restricted to a particular place. He is omnipresent, okay? We may feel Him when we are in a particular place, but God is everywhere. And that is why David could say, even though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I fear no ill, because your rod and your staff, they comfort me. Okay? You are with me, and your rod and your staff, they comfort me. Okay? So even when we don't feel His presence, He is still walking with us, taking us along. Okay? But here, Jacob, because of that dream, he felt the presence of God. Early in the next morning, Jacob took the stone he placed under his head and set it up as a pillar. There are 4 places Jacob would set up pillar. His grandfather, okay, that is Abraham, always where, in most of the places where he went, he erected altar, okay. He worshipped God, he connected with Him. But you can also see when you read the book of Genesis, it is not a hidden fact, it is an open secret. Wherever Abraham was sinning and falling, there is no altar. There is no altar in Aram, okay. When he was wasting time, literally, God had asked him to go into Canaan. He parked himself in Haran, there was no altar. Then there was famine. After he came to the Negev, he goes to Egypt. In Haran, he made money, he became rich. Then he goes to Egypt. Sarah is in the Pharaoh's palace. Abraham becomes rich, okay. King shows favor to him. He becomes richer and prospers. Lot of money. Many people think like, money means God is very close to you and near you, okay. But Abraham had no altar even in Egypt. Very often when we are running after money, the first things that will be sacrificed in our life will be our altar. The place where we commune with God, the place where we relate with God, where we speak to Him and He speaks to us, that will take a beating. I've seen a lot of young people, when we were youth, we were almost 50, 60 young people who grew together. We came to know the Lord together. Some didn't know the Lord till late into their lives and even died without knowing the Lord. Okay? but most of us came to know the Lord because a revival swept through us. Okay? But after we came to know the Lord, people were different. Some remained where they were. Some grew. Some became spiritual giants. Some are serving the Lord faithfully, working, serving, some serving full time. Whatever way, some are very faithful. Okay? So, Abraham suffered because he did not. In Jacob's case, he erected pillars to remind himself of the place and his encounter. So he would make 4 places, he would erect pillars as a memory. Okay? So when we go through it, or when you are studying, you can discover it. Maybe next week you can tell me. Jacob is covered in many chapters, but you can find out and tell me where else he erected pillars as a memorial. Okay? So there is no harm if you write in your diary, the Lord did this in my life today. Write it. Remember it. Thank God for it. Okay? There's no problem if you do it. It is good, better than forgetting the good things that the Lord has done in your life. Okay? But Jacob made a vow. Okay? Bible is very clear about making vows. Okay? We should not make vows. That is what the Bible tells. Why? You can't make your white hair black, nor your black hair white. Nothing you can do. You can't add a moment to your life. Nothing you can do. Okay? These are all sovereign decisions of God. Okay? You cannot, in short, you cannot keep your promise. But here you find Jacob making a promise. Okay? Now what is that vow? If. Okay, so he puts a condition. Many times human beings also put conditions. People go to temples, they offer a coconut and they break it to a god and tell, if you do this, then I will give donation. Okay? Christians also do that. Okay? They pray to God or have some servant of whom they call a servant of God, pray for them, and then if their prayer is answered, they will contribute a lot of money through to that ministry, through which their prayer got answered, or so they feel. Okay? So here Jacob also is in that phase in his life where he puts conditions on God. If God will be with me and will watch over me. So he is asking 3 things. If God will be with me, second, will watch over me on this journey I'm taking, will give me food to eat and clothes to wear, so that I will return safely to my father's house, then the Lord will be my God. So for him, his belief was something like God had to show himself, perform. God had to show himself to be able to meet his need. Then he will follow this God. Many times we do that. Okay, I had also done it. Okay, when I prayed in my unbelief, when I was struggling in one phase in my life, whether God is the real God or whether evolution is the fact of life. Okay, I could not resolve it. The Sunday school teachers who were there knew nothing about science, and the preachers from the assemblies nearby would actually ridicule you if you questioned the Bible. Okay, so doubts were there in the mind and no answer was there. So one day I prayed. I was in the bedroom in my house in Ebenezer. I prayed to God. There was a temple outside. Okay, and I prayed that if God is the real God, then the lights in the temple should go out, whereas the lights in my house should not go out. Okay, the power supply to both were common. Okay, I prayed. Then I felt guilty also. Okay, because I was in that phase. I thought Satan used to be the one who did the challenge God like that. No? So then I felt I should not. So I prayed to God, asking him to forgive me for praying that way. But even before I could finish my prayer, I heard a lot of sound outside my house. I went to the window and saw there was a truck entering into the ground outside my balcony. Okay. And there were wires hanging low. The owner of the temple was trying to stop that truck. He was shouting, yelling at the top of his voice, but the truck went on, and right in front of my eyes, it uprooted the wires and the poles that supported those wires, and everything plunged in darkness in front of me. Okay? Whereas I was standing in light. My hair stood on its head. I'm not joking. Like Jacob, I felt the presence of God that day. Okay? It was very chilling. Though it is not right to put conditions before God, God understands the genuineness or the desires of our heart and often deals with it. It was Thomas who said, unless I put my finger in his palm, unless I put my hand in his side where he was pierced, unless I feel it with my own hands, I won't believe, because dead men don't come alive. Okay? And Jesus appeared for him and told Thomas, put your finger here, put your finger in my side. Okay? God did not ridicule or was furious about the genuine doubts of people. Okay? Though he is God, the Almighty, omnipresent, omniscient, all-seeing, eternal, who fills the universe, who created us, and we are insignificant, still he comes down for us and answers us and meets us at our point of need. Okay? So, Jacob put conditions. Then this place will be God's house. And all that you give me, I will give you 10% or a tithe of it. Okay? Same equation. You appear, you bless me, I will give you contribution. Does God need our money? Okay, he doesn't need our money. Okay, he is not doing anything for us because it benefits him. Okay, he is as good without us and the Bible says he owns the cattle on 1,000 hills. Okay, everything in this universe is his. He made it. He doesn't need. What can we give to him? Okay. Jacob also told, I'll make a place of worship here. Okay, that stone, I'll convert it into a place of worship. Does God need? Solomon, when he was building the temple, he asked the question, who am I to build a temple for God? He fills the universe. This small thing that I make, okay, it was a grand thing that he built actually, but this small thing, how can it contain that God who fills the universe? Okay, so we have to be careful. Even Paul the apostle told the same thing. God is not restricted to temples made by human hands. Acts 16 or 17, which chapter? 17, I think. Okay. So, all the promises that Jacob was making was not something that was important. But he wakes up, he erects the stone. God will bring him back to that place. God will tell him in Paddan, Aram, okay, go back to Bethel. Okay, that's where I met you. I am the God of Bethel. God wanted him to know, to recall that he is the one who is in touch with him. Okay, so in all human beings' lives, God connects with them in ways that we cannot see and understand. It is not that people who have never heard the gospel, we think, no? They don't know because they have no Christian has told the gospel. It's not like that. God is always interacting with human beings, communicating with them, reaching out to them, saving them, touching their lives, keeping them safe. Okay? And they know it, that he is the God who is doing it, but yet they reject him. Okay? Then Jacob continued on his journey and came to the land of the eastern peoples. Okay? So when we come to a thing like that, we should always find out who are those eastern peoples. Okay, I think somewhere in 1 Samuel 6, let's just see if I remember the correct place. 1 Samuel 6, verse 3 onwards, I think. Is it correct? I don't know. No. Okay, huh? Judges 6 it is? Yeah, then it is correct. Can you read it? Okay. Judges 6:3. Whenever the Israelites planted their crops, the Midianites, Amalekites, and other eastern peoples invaded the country. Okay. So, among the eastern peoples, the Midianites were there, the Amalekites were there, and many other communities. Even the Ammonites were on the east. Okay. These were the peoples who were there. They were all people who had strayed away from the living God. Okay, so he came to the land of the eastern peoples. There he saw a well in the open country and 3 flocks of sheep lying there. We have read that passage. Okay, and these flocks of sheep and shepherds were there. Okay, Jacob asked the question, where are you from? My brothers, where are you from? We are from Haran, they replied, verse 4. Then he asked the question, do you know Laban, Nahor's grandson? Yes, we know him, they answered. Then Jacob said, ask them, is he well? Yes, he is. And here comes his daughter Rachel with the sheep. Okay. So when you read this verse, what comes to your mind? What thoughts come to your mind? No thoughts come to your mind? Put yourself in Jacob's shoes. You are now away from your family. You are in a distant place. How many kilometers we said? 1,100 kilometers. Okay? Just like Ahmedabad to Hyderabad or Bangalore or something like that. Big distance. He was there in Bangalore, no? Just like the distance you went, but you went by flight and came by train, or went by train and came by flight, but he had to walk all that distance. You can imagine how it will be. And the fear that he had, whether he will be able to locate his relatives, all those fears would have been there, no? They didn't have WhatsApp and other things to send messages, Google auntie to answer, no, which way he should take the turn. All empty spaces. If he takes a small deviation, he will land in, 100, 200, 500 kilometers away from where he wanted to go. You get it, no? So there would have been a lot of fear whether he will reach, even know to the place where he had to go. Okay. Now, when this incident takes place like this, what should have been the feeling of Jacob? Jacob को क्या महसूस हुआ रहेगा? Huh? He's in the right path. He's in the right path. Yeah, he's come to the correct place. At least that he will surely know. Then, huh? Happy to see his family member. Okay, he didn't recognize her. Somebody told it is Laban's daughter, and he then connected with the family. Then whether they will receive. अभी इतना दूर तो आ गया, सही जगह पे भी आ गया, उन लोग रिसीव करेगा क्या नहीं, एक्सेप्ट करेगा क्या नहीं, चले जाओ वापिस बोलेगा तो, क्यों भाग के आया करके पूछेगा तो. He has a history behind him also, no? They will want to know why he's come there alone. Okay. If something like this happens to us, what we will say? Luckily, I reached that place, no? Fortunately, I was in the right place at the right time, so मेरा ticket हो गया. है ना, मैं किया, मेरा लास्ट सीट मेरे को मिला लकीली. Okay. According to the Bible, there are no luckily's or fortunately. There is only divine appointments and providence of God. God is sovereign. He controls everything that happens in our life. You are not luckily under a boss. You are not luckily in any company. It's not because you were talented and you applied. Okay. I finished my M.Pharm. I got a job before my final exam. The person who was to take interview, because I had done by research, so there was an interview and a oral test that will happen when the person will examine my thesis and then decide whether I should get M.Pharm or no. And this got postponed because he suffered a heart attack before he could conduct my exam. And then the university and everything delayed everything by 9 months. But the minute I finished my job, my M.Pharm, my submission of the thesis, I got the job before I had a degree. Luckily, providentially. Okay. I got my degree after, actually in my hand 1 year afterwards, I got that job. Nothing in our life happens because we are smart, we answered good questions. No. Everything in life has to do with the hand of God in our life. Okay.
We don't make the right decision. We are not very contact with God.
Yeah.
Faithfully walking with Him.
So unfaithfully, if we go also, will anything happen luckily only, or it will be still providentially? The Samaritan woman was on the wrong track. 5 husbands and the 6th one was not married also to her. But she was not luckily at the well. Jesus had an appointment with her at the well. Yeah. Purposes. It is not for unbelievers, that verse. But still, even unbelievers here, Jacob also is led by God, whatever it may be. Okay, even when he does not know. So we should not think that, God is not playing a part in other people's lives, that he is only playing a role in believers. It's not that way. Before I came to know the Lord, the hand of God was there in many, many millions of ways. He connected with me. When I was a child, like Jeremiah, okay, we were playing cricket in Ebenezer basement. Now, because the topic came, I'll just tell. I was not saved at that time. So I was fielding. Somebody hit the ball. The ball went outside the gate. The gate would be kept closed, but the ball always, it finds the gaps, not the grill. Okay, so it went through so I opened the gate and I ran across because the ball had to be retrieved quickly. Cricket is important. Okay, football is important now. So cricket was important for me at that time. And you won't believe it. Everyone became silent and speechless. One taxi was going at full speed and I and the taxi just missed by a hair's breadth. That's it. I felt the wind also as it zipped past me. And he must have been stunned and shocked as he slammed the brakes, But he didn't make contact with me. Who was watching over me? It is God. Okay? I didn't know, like how Jacob also told, that a little fear of God came, but it went off after some days again. Okay? So, but looking back, you will know that, the hand of God was there in so many, many, many occasions in your life. What was impossible had happened. Jacob never thought he will go there. Okay. Now, in that place, he gets united with, we can read Proverbs 16:9. Can someone read it? Proverbs 16:9.
In his heart, a man plans his course, but the Lord determines his steps.
Okay. In his heart, a man plans his course. Okay. This is a general statement. But the Lord determines his steps. So the outcome, and there is a divine, that is what Jacob saw also. There was a connection between the heaven and earth. And even God was connecting with Jacob, who did not know him at that point of time. Okay. God is in connect with every human being and doing. He doesn't need others to share the gospel. If you don't share the gospel also, he is doing his work. You are rebellious. God has commanded you to share the gospel, but others will not go to hell because you did not share the gospel. God is concerned, loving, caring enough to deal with them directly. Okay. So Laban received him and said, you are flesh of my, you are flesh and blood, and accepted him. Okay. Verse 14 that we read. And after Jacob had stayed with him for a whole month, Laban said to him, just because you are a relative of mine, should you work for me for nothing? Tell me what your wages should be. Okay. And at this point of time, Jacob has his eye on Rachel. Okay. He is attracted with her beauty. He wants to marry her. Okay. So, he said, I'll work for 7 years in return for your younger daughter, Rachel. Okay. So Jacob wants to marry Rachel. So he tells, I'll serve in your house for 7 years, and then I'll marry. You give me Rachel in marriage. So 7 years goes by. The Bible tells in verse 21, Jacob goes to Laban and says, my time is completed. Okay. And verse 20 says, they seemed like only a few days to him because he was in love for her. Okay. So there was a physical attraction. Even 7 years, which is a long period of time, we have felt very little for Jacob because he was attracted to Rachel. Then we see Laban actually deceiving him. Okay. The night of marriage, the evening of marriage is there, and Leah is brought. Okay. Jacob does not know that it is Leah. Okay. Then in the morning he discovers that who was given to him in marriage was Leah, the elder sister, whose eyes were weak, and Jacob did not have any attraction, physical attraction towards her. Okay. So he told Laban immediately, why did you do this? Okay. Then Laban told him, it is not a custom in our place that when the elder one is still unmarried, the younger one is given in marriage. Okay. So all his life, Jacob had been snatching things from other people. Now, for the first time, he realized that people can deceive him also. And it was his would-be father-in-law who was playing a game with him. And afterwards, he had to work 7 more years to marry Rachel. Okay. But what I want you to see is that during this period of time, 14 years later, Jacob is married and settled. We had seen last time that he must have been 40 plus at least. Okay, because Esau got married when he was 40. And his wives gave trouble to Isaac and Rebekah. So a few more years at least, minimum, as a minimum would have taken place, 42, 43. And then add 14 more years, then he is married to these 2 people. Okay. Then verse 31 onwards till the next chapter, verse 24. Okay. It is how different children are born to Jacob. Okay. 12 are born. Benjamin is not born. 11 sons and 1 daughter is born. Okay. when you read even that portion, you can see the tragedy of the way in which Jacob was raising his family. Okay. We will just touch upon the highlights so that, we understand how it was in this family. Okay. Verse 30. Jacob, his love for Rachel was greater than his love for Leah. And he worked for Laban another 7 years. So even though he was married to sisters, he was loving one more than the other. Okay. There was discrimination. He had seen his parents do it. He had seen his parents discriminating between him and his brother. Father like Esau, mother like Jacob. Okay. And he found nothing wrong with treating the two wives that he had unequally. Okay. So be careful. Many of the mistakes and sins of the parents will rub on easily into their children's lives. Okay. Then the Bible says, when the Lord, verse 31, saw that Leah was not loved, he enabled her to conceive. Okay. I think KJV will put it as hated, no? How does KJV put verse 31? What? Leah was unloved. Okay. I think the older KJV may it is hated, because the same word is used in other places in Malachi and Romans. Okay. He enabled her to conceive. Okay. We see God as a God who sees. Even when human beings discriminate against other human beings, there is a God who is watching us. And he is intervening in lives of people. When Abraham sent off Hagar, or rather Hagar ran away from Abraham's house because of Sarah. Okay. God appeared to Hagar. Okay. She called God El Roy, God who sees. Okay. So she realized she was not a person who belonged to the covenant people. Okay. So here also we find, like, Leah was not loved, but God saw and he made her conceive, and Rachel remained childless. Okay. The Lord was balancing out in their family. Okay. Leah conceived, and the names that she gives to her children, they are indicative of the feelings that go on in her heart. Okay. Reuben, the firstborn, because God has seen my misery. Okay. She realizes that God has seen, and she has been treated badly, but there is at least God who is seeing her misery and giving her a son. Okay. She conceived again, and she named him, the second one, Simeon, because God heard that I am not loved. He gave me this one. Third one was Levi. It was a hope. My husband will now get more attached to me. Okay. Because she could feel the pain of Jacob showing his love towards Rachel and actually spurning and ignoring Leah. Okay. Then the fourth one, Judah, was born. This time I will praise the Lord. Okay. From becoming a person who was having a need, which she was seeing God was fulfilling it, now she realized she must praise God. Okay. So when Judah is born, she says, I will praise him. Okay. Then Rachel gives her servant to Jacob, and Dan is born. She says, God has vindicated me. Then Naphtali is born. She says, I have had a great struggle with my sister and I have won. See what kind of a family, where the wives, who are actually sisters, are actually competing with each other for the love of their husband. Okay. A terrible family. Then Leah gave her servant, and then Gad was born. She said, what a good fortune. Okay. They are in the same state like that. And then Asher was born. How happy am I? Okay. Then God listened to Leah. There is another incident which takes place. And then Leah has Issachar. God has rewarded me. Then she bears a son called Zebulun. Okay. My husband will treat me with honor because I have borne him 6 sons. Okay. That is her hope. Okay. Sometime later, she gave birth to a daughter named Dinah. Okay. Then God remembered Rachel and she gave birth to a son. And she said, God has taken away my disgrace. And she named him Joseph. Okay. So this is the condition in Jacob's home. Far away from God, not treating his wives equally. Nothing is mentioned about, prayer or altars or anything in Jacob's life during this phase of his life. Okay. And everything seems messy. You will find later on, Reuben's terrible action, Judah's terrible action, then the actions of all the brothers against Joseph. Everything is there for us to see. What kind of a family it was that came from Jacob's, who were descendants, direct descendants of Jacob. What a terrible family. Okay. But God chose this family. One of the things that should be, we may feel discouraged when you look at the family like that, but when you look at your own life and your family, you will find a lot of resemblance to Jacob's family. If you're honest with yourself, the way you live, the way you decide, the way you treat other people, the sarcasm, the arrogance, the craving for money, and all those things, you will find not much different from Jacob. And it became a family that was destroyed. Last week we saw Jacob's journey was from Beersheba to Haran, Paddan Aram, which is actually the region surrounding the city of Haran. Okay. Abraham had started his journey from there. Okay, from Ur he reached Haran, settled there, and then from Haran to Beersheba he had come. Okay, so in this reverse journey, everything became upside down in the life of Jacob. Okay, so that is what we see. Then we come to verse 25, after the birth of Jacob. Jacob goes to Laban and says, send me on my way so that I can go to my homeland. He wants to go back. Enough is enough. 14 saal kaam kar liya idhar. Okay. And children are born, so some more years would have gone. Okay. So now he wants to go back. He asked permission from Laban. Those 14 years, now I want you to shift gear to understand a boss and a subordinate relationship also. His boss was his father-in-law, but he was his boss. He was working under him. Okay. So he asked his permission now. I want to go. Okay. Later on in verse 20 of chapter 31, can someone read? Jeremiah. Yeah, 31 verse 20. 19. 20 verse 20.
And Jacob roamed away unknown to Laban the Syrian, seeing that he did not tell him that he intended to.
Okay. So Jacob, I'll read it from an easier version. Okay. Jacob deceived Laban the Aramean by not telling him he was running away. So he fled with all that he had and crossed the Euphrates. Okay. Paddan Aram, in that region only the Euphrates also flows. It starts from there. Okay. So Jacob fled without telling. In your offices, there are people who quit without telling. Salary khate mein aata hai, so people disappear. Our company salary would come between 5th and 7th. So nobody will give their resignation. 7th, when the money gets deposited, next day they will not come and they will send by email like, they have gone. Okay. So Jacob's nature is not only a nature that was there at that time. It is still there. When does it happen? When would such things happen? John, you have not seen such things at all in your office. When does it happen? I don't expect children to answer, but working people should answer, no? Loud. You ate, no?
Yeah. Like after salary or?
Yeah, but why I am asking? That I already told. After salary, they disappear. But why they do like that? Without telling why they run?
During trouble, don't like that place.
They don't like the place. Okay? They were not satisfied with the working conditions. They are not satisfied with their boss or they have tussles. Okay? The way they work and the expectation of the company are different. So they think if they run away, what will happen? अच्छा हो जाएगा, better opportunity रहेगा. Okay, sometimes they go from the frying pan into the fire. Okay, but at that time the fire is not seen. Okay, so here also he had to face the fire. No, he had to meet Esau बाद में. He had to go without getting reconciled. He had to go and meet him. Okay, so when trust is broken, when respect is lost, that is when you don't care. So Jacob didn't care. First he asked permission, but Laban, what he does? He tells him, he convinces him. Okay. He convinces him to stay. Okay. You should read those interesting verses because it will remind you of your factory. See, verse 27. Laban is telling, if I have found favor in your eyes, please stay. I have learnt by divination that the Lord has blessed me because of you. So what kind of a person was Laban? Doing divination, things that were forbidden for the people of God. Okay. So previous generation, that is what I said little earlier, no? Rebecca and all were believers. Bethuel, Nahor, all these were believers. But look at their children now. Esau, Jacob's sons and daughters. Okay. And Laban. When they actually leave the house and go, Rachel steals the idol from her father and goes. Why? She loved the living God. She was also an idol worshipper. Okay. So that was the kind of a place and relationship that they had. Then Jacob asked, verse 30, but now when may I do something for my household? He says इतना दिन तो काम कर लिया अभी इधर मेरा घर के लिए I want to do something for my family now, at least for my household. Okay. Then whatever he asked, what shall I give you? Jacob asked, no? Laban asked. So then Jacob puts his stuff. See, he's wishy-washy. He wanted to go, but now when a new offer comes, no, from the owner or from his father-in-law or his boss, now he is negotiating. Then he says all the sheep or goats which are spotted or streaked will be mine. Okay. First you remove all these and take it to yourself. Whatever is born streaked or spotted will be mine. Okay. If you allow that, then I will stay. Okay. So his boss agrees for that. I want you to see one more thing. verse 7 of chapter 31. Eric.
Great your father has treated me by changing my wages 10 times.
Okay.
However,
Yeah, I know. So what sort of workplace he was in? See, Jacob was a cheat, but his father-in-law was a bigger cheat. He had his two daughters in Jacob's home. Okay. So he controlled everything. He changed his wage system 10 times. Okay, that's what Jacob is telling. Whenever the streaked ones were born, he said streaked ones will no longer be yours. Then when the spotted ones became more, he said, you read that passage, you will find it very interesting. Okay. Laban does many things to cheat Jacob. Jacob uses unscientific means for making spotted and streaked sheep and goats to be born. Okay, he keeps wooden pieces with streaks on them. I've seen Maharashtrian homes, where when children are born, they will paint the wall beforehand, before the birth of their child, white color. You know why? So that the child will grow up fair. They will not get my color type. Maybe mom put me in front of charcoal. People think by what they see, they will become like that. Human beings even today think like that. So Jacob also thought like that. If he cut wood, he was thinking he will outsmart Laban. But God gave him that. Not because of Jacob's smartness, because scientifically it cannot happen. Okay? But because God wanted him to prosper. Later on he will recall, I went with a staff in my hand and nothing else. Okay? Even a stone for a pillow on the way. That's all that he had. And when he was returning, see verse 43 of chapter 30. In this way, the man grew exceedingly prosperous and came to own large flocks and female and male servants and camels and donkeys. So when Jacob finished his time in Paddan Aram, he was a wealthy man. Okay? And he had plenty of things. Even though his boss tried to cheat him, his father-in-law, tried to cheat him, yet God blessed him abundantly. Okay? So we will continue with Jacob and his family next week. Okay? When we look at some other things from their life. Okay? But remember, the things that they went through, you may be going through in your life as well. When I went through work, many times I got that feeling. Whenever increment time came, somebody else got the increment. People who would not do 10% of the work that I was doing would get double increments, promotions, and all the accolades. Best worker award in the meeting. But what are we looking for? Are we also stooping to their level? Many times, I had to remind myself, this is not what it is. What you need to look forward is that when you stand before him, you will hear, well done, good and faithful servant, from the one who created you. Why should we want to hear from our bosses? What we should hear from our God. Okay? So look at Jacob's life and learn an important lesson. We may do cheating, we may think we are smart, but it's not because of that blessing comes. Haggai, Prophet Haggai. What is the incident that took place there? You remember? You should remember Haggai only for one major incident. What? God threw a challenge to those people. Tell. It is finished.
You are building a panel house, and saying you have time to build a temple.
You are building paneled houses and saying it is not time to build the temple. Okay? They had reason also, because if you see Ezra and Nehemiah, those books which parallel or around that time writings are there. you will notice that so much, like how Babri Masjid had cases going on, no? And there was. Yeah. So, which made construction of the temple difficult. But still God said, you are taking advantage by making paneled houses. That means the Jews were doing well in Babylon. Okay. Then God said, start rebuilding my temple. Till now, you put coins in your pocket. What happened? There were holes in your pocket. The coins went away. You came to a heap of grain which you had put there. And when you went there, there was nothing left. Everything I blew away. Okay. So it is not through our smartness, no, in interviews, smartness in our job, okay, and our pleasing of our boss, that the heap will grow bigger or lot of coins will clang in your pocket. That way. God said, I blew it away. They did their part. They collected those things. But God blew it away. Then he said, mark it on your calendar, the day on which you start construction, and see if you are not blessed after that. Okay. So in our secular life also, where we are working, we need to be careful that we do not look for the praise of men, run after the things that the world runs after, but seek the things of God, and God will do what he knows he must do. You don't have to tell him. You are his child. You know, when Jolu comes home from school, Sudha knows what has to be given. Okay, it will be ready. When she is going to school also, everything will be given. Everything revolves around her very often in the home, because parents know what to give their children. And that is what Jesus told, no? If you as wicked people will not give a stone instead of bread or a snake instead of fish to your children, will the Heavenly Father do that? You know, trust God. That is what Jesus was telling. Trust Him. He will give you what you need. You do His thing. You give priority in your life to His thing. Rest, it is His responsibility. You are His child. He will take care. I am not preaching a prosperity gospel. Okay. I am talking about a God who will take care of His children. Okay. Even when Shadrach, Meshach and Abednego had to go in the fire, He was there to take care. When the stones were flying to kill Stephen, He was there. So I'm quoting all types of examples so that you know that it is not always going to be like, money in your pocket and, a big home which is painted and well furnished. That's not the dream. If God gives, great. God made David live in a palace. But there were poor believers even at that time. What God has given you, be content and satisfied with it. Okay. Jacob's life was filled with discontentment till quite late in his life. Okay. And you will discover the price that he paid because of that discontentment with what God was giving him in his life. The suffering that came upon him because of that. Okay, we can see. We'll close with a word of prayer. John can lead